It's a Meccano small parts box from the 1950s or 60s, made out of recyclable cardboard. Hi! If you want even more Meccano goodness, why don't you check out my Patreon channel? And please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I post updates in the community section, not only for this week's Patreon build, but also for what I'm currently working on. Thank you, and back to the build. Hi, and welcome back. This week's build is the fourth from the highway set, and it's the dump truck. One of the things that always amazes me is the history behind the things that I take for granted. Those things that make our life work on all levels. And the humble dump truck comes in that list. Two of my oldest toys are a Tonka orange dump truck and a bulldozer with backhoe. Growing up in the hot summers of the 1970s, they were hard at work in the 25-ton pile of sand my father had ordered when he was renovating the house. Quarries were dug, harbours built that never did hold water for long. Look, I was very young and didn't understand at that point that sand was porous. Earthworks were made for toy soldiers to attack and defend, and of course the good guys always won, the good guys being the British and the Americans. And my very wise mother insisted on outdoor toys and indoor toys, i.e. those with small parts that are so easily lost are for playing with indoors, and the big chunky toys are for playing with outside. And looking back, I think the 1970s were the end of the idyllic period of childhood, where we played using our imaginations. We made things with our hands, played in the fields and woods, and were allowed to be innocent while being taught the values of life. My earliest interaction with a real dump truck was during this time, walking back from school, when they started to dig up the road outside my parents' house. A big, oily lorry was parked as a JCB filled it from a trench that was being dug to lay a new sewer main. The workmen standing, talking to the driver. Ducking under the barriers, I started to climb down into the trench to explore for Roman treasure that they might have dug up. That exploration ended in a lot of shouting. I didn't see the problem. The digger was working at the other end of the trench, and I was exploring quite safely, having climbed down using some handy yellow pipe that was just under the ground. As a child, I always thought grown-ups overreacted to things. The watchman in charge of traffic was told off for not paying attention. The driver of the JCB had to stop and have a cigarette, and I was told off by my mother for upsetting the foreman. I never did get a chance to finish my exploration for buried treasure, but I was given a rather nice paraffin safety lamp to make up for it. I still have it. Talking to my mother about this build, she asked when the dump truck was invented. As to her, it had been around forever. But it is a relatively new vehicle. The man behind the invention is about as great a British hero as you could want to find, Sir John Isaac Thornycroft, known for his work on ship designs and particularly fast ship design. In the late 1890s he began a new business, that of steam-powered lorries. But, without a doubt, the motorisation of the dump truck happened in America at the beginning of the 20th century, with the use of hydraulic power being added to lift the bed by the Wood Hoist Company. Prior to that, tipping of the bed was done manually using rope and pinion method. The need of the First World War saw the development of the truck, as Fruhoff Trailer Company of America obtained a license to build a dump truck, as well as designing a semi-truck. The marriage of the internal combustion engine and the truck was established, and the art of wartime logistics was changed forever. Like the wood hoist company, Fruhoff began to add hydraulics to their trucks, along with lift gates, winches, and an additional trailer to double the load. With this, the company became famed for their innovations and was considered the premier supplier, with their bathtub dump truck being considered the best by transport companies in America, used by heavy haulage companies as well as road and mining construction firms. In many ways, the dump truck is one of the unsung heroes that helped build America in the 1920s. As lakes of concrete were poured to build the nation, the engineering logistical nightmare was eased by the ability of the truck. No longer did you need to build a railway to the project to remove waste or bring goods to the site. The dump truck, along with Stephen Stefani's cement lorry, helped shape America and give us the iconic landmarks that we have today. The Second World War again saw the dump truck become the backbone of moving an army, with the US forces making good use of them in the manufacturing of air bases in the Pacific Campaign. From these simple beginnings, we now have different classes of dump truck. From the standard dump, the semi-trailer end dump, the transfer dump, the truck and pup dump, the super dump, semi-trailer bottom dump, the double and triple trailer bottom dump, the semi-side dump, winter service vehicles, roll-off dumps, off-highway dumps, haul truck, the articulated hauler, and the U-shaped dump. Each vehicle serving different sectors in a different way. After all, a giant haul truck wouldn't be much use for road construction. And while the articulated hauler might be able to go just about anywhere, its fuel consumption makes it unaffordable to operate for any great distance. Like the old saying goes, right tool for the right job. But just stop and think what was achieved before this. Because for nearly 2,500 years, the wheelbarrow has been the prime mover of soil and rocks on building sites. And I'm not going to go into too much depth on the origin and history of the wheelbarrow yet, as I've just filmed that build in the blue and gold Meccana from the 1930s, which will be aired first on Patreon. But the wheelbarrow is a Chinese invention from the Han Dynasty. But when we look at what our ancestors built without the benefits of powered diggers and earth-moving equipment, it has to be inspiring. And we know that the Romans used hydraulic strip mining to unearth resources, as well as other civilizations, using different methods that were equally questionable by today's standards. But at the end of the day, they built it by hand. And that's some feat of arms, a sheer will to achieve the task. In case you haven't guessed from listening to this channel, history and random knowledge are one of my real enjoyments in life. That useless information that seems to have no purpose. Like, for instance, a sheep lives to around 15 years or so naturally, but will only be allowed to bear lambs until around the age of 8. So in most cases, they're culled around that age. And the reason for stopping the ewe from bearing lambs is that their front teeth are normally falling out around this age. And there's an increased cost in feeding and supporting them until they've lost all their teeth and are able to feed normally again. We used to eat the meat. It was called mutton. Slow cooked in a pot with vegetables, and it's lovely. And why is it important? It's not. It's just knowledge. And this is the same. The thought of what was achieved in Britain let alone elsewhere in the world, by hand is mind-blowing when you think about it. Our railways and canals were dug by a workforce, in many cases without even the ability to remove the material any great distance. Railways were different, as a railhead could follow the workforce. And the ability to bring steam-powered cranes and diggers to the workface must have helped tremendously. But as we walk through our countryside, it's worth remembering that it is a countryside that has been worked for thousands of years. Even where I live, the remains of Roman Britain still slice like a straight line connecting a society that has long gone. The Celtic tribe that had its hill fort not 2 miles away from my front door has vanished beneath the village of Medhamsley. Their work carried out by hand with digging sticks and wooden shovels. The earth carried away in woven wicker baskets. The 4 railways that connected Consett, all long since silent to rail transport, were cut through the local bedrock by muscle power and gunpowder. And if you look at the cuttings, the work can still be seen where once pick and powder moved earth and rock. Of all the dump trucks you see in the UK, the most common is the EU 4-axle tipper. They're used to haul aggregates from depot or quarry to the end destination. With the 2 front axles turning, their ability to get to awkward sites is well established. In fact, they've been part of the background traffic in the UK for so long that I can't even recall when they first appeared. But nearly 30 years ago, at the point of writing the script, I was sat in the office of the Manpower Planning Unit at Durham Ambulance. The ambulance restroom alongside our office suddenly emptied as Durham crew scrambled to their vehicles, followed by several senior officers. Unknown to us at that time, one of our ambulances had been hit while attending an accident on the A19. Stopped in the outside lane, blue lights lit while the paramedic helped to attend to a victim of an RTA. The ambulance was struck in the rear by a fully laden EU 4-wheel tipper. The casualty, who was strapped to the stretcher, was unharmed. The paramedic, a father of 2, was not so lucky. The driver of the tipper had been looking at the accident, his attention not on the lane in front. The life support was turned off a day later. And as I watch YouTube videos, car drivers brake-checking lorries, I am reminded of the mangled wreck of the ambulance that was parked outside our office window in the forensic bay while the police accident investigation was carried out. The carnage of the vehicle had a lasting impact on the young 20-year-old that thought he was the best driver ever and immortal. So take care when you're out there, because there be giants on our roads.